Hi folks, welcome back to Stacey Can. Today I am dehydrating kiwi. And while I go over all this information, you can follow along down below in the show notes and hit like and subscribe while you're down there because that does help. So I found a bunch of kiwi for sale for a decent price at Costco and got a bunch because I love dehydrated kiwi. And they're just a great snack. You can put them on yogurt, you can mix them in, make your own trail mix with them, whatever, you eat them however you'd like. You can even pulse them all together if you want and make a puree and do a fruit leather, but I just decided to slice it and put it in the dehydrator. So the tools that you need are, a knife and a vegetable peeler. You do need to peel the outer layer here. And then also you can use a mandolin if you want, or I'm using my food processor because it's got a, you want to slice them at 1/4 of an inch. So I'm using my food slicer. My mandolin is just way too thin. And if you get it too thin, then it just becomes almost like just a paper consistency if the fruit is too thin. And when it dehydrates, and then it's a little more papery. Sometimes it doesn't have that strong of a flavor either, and it can become brittle. But if that's how you like your dehydrated fruit, then you can do that. I don't, so I'm choosing to do a little bit thicker slices with it too. Also, kiwi has a higher water content in it, so it's going to shrink a lot. Unlike like apples and pears don't lose as much volume, it seems, as a kiwi does. So just keep that in mind for future or as you're going through this process. So so I'm using the my little food processor here, and then obviously you need a dehydrator, or you can put it in your oven as long as you have the oven propped open, but make sure you have a thermometer that you can put in the oven to keep an eye on the temperature. And when you prop open your oven, I suggest using tinfoil because you can kind of adjust it and squish it and straighten it just to prop the door open to the appropriate space. We're going to be dehydrating this at 135 to 140 degrees. So my oven, the lowest temperature is 170, which would just bake the kiwi too much. It would become more baked and brittle than dehydrated. So with all that, let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is slice the kiwi like so, peel it. And I'm using a vegetable peeler because I think it does a better job of taking a thin layer than if I were to use a knife. And I'm going to wait to cut the ends until I'm done. I'm taking my knife and cutting the very end off. Kind of hard, but I waited to cut the ends off until I was done peeling. And then putting it in my food processor, I've got it set up to 1/4 of an inch. Blade is in here and slicing away. I was able to get these 4 trays put together with about 10 kiwi. And these are just kind of like the dredges that were left over at the bottom of the food processor, and I'm just putting those in here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and cover this and get started on the timer. Okay, so I have my dehydrator turned on to 135 degrees. And it says it's gonna take anywhere from 10 to 18 hours to dehydrate. So I'm gonna set the timer for 8 hours at the moment, check it, and then go from there. So I dehydrated the kiwi for 10 hours, which worked really well for me. I did check it after 8. I just set it right before I went to bed. When I woke up in the morning, had a moment to check it after about 8 hours, double checked, and I was like, nah, I just needed that extra 2 hours. And they've turned out quite well, if I may say so myself. Look at how cute they are. They're quite tasty, and they just come right off of the tray here, which is quite lovely. And you want them kind of pliable and leathery feeling, and this is exactly the way they are. And they're pretty thin, so keep that in mind. As I mentioned, when you're slicing them, you do want a thicker slice. If I used my mandolin with this, they would just be see-through paper. And I have dehydrated fruits where they were a little too thin, or fruit leather that was just too thin. It doesn't kind of taste weird. It doesn't taste that great, I don't think, because it's just kind of brittle air, so to speak. I mean, it does have flavor, but it's not as much as I like. So this is how we do. And so I'm going to open up my container here. This is what I store my fruit leathers and dehydrated goodies in. And for this tray, I did use a tray, as mentioned, that didn't have the big holes in it because it was just easier for me. I think because it's so wet and they're so pliable that I think the trays that have holes in them would have been, sometimes I find that things get stuck in between it. So I used the flatter tray here today. And if you notice, I've got these little pieces here that I went ahead and dehydrated with. I think these are going to be great to put on, and you can crumble up all of this if you want, but this will be great to put over. My kids love yogurt, just plain Greek yogurt that then they get to dress up. This is kind of fun to use for dressing up yogurt or cereal, or throwing it in, like I said, making your own trail mix. I always think it's a little bananas as to, there was I think I had 10 to 12 kiwi in here, and this is how much it shrunk to. But they're very good. It's really good. They're very, very sweet, nice and chewy. At least that's the way I like it. Nice and chewy. And these will keep for a while. You can also put these in a freezer safe container and freeze them, which will keep them a little bit longer than if you just leave them on the shelf. I kind of think after a few months they start to lose their flavor a little bit if you don't eat them quick enough. So you can take part of this if you'd like and stick in the freezer. One thing you do want to do is, after you put them in a container, is to condition them. So that just means you want to just give them a shake once a day for about a week. This will help make sure that any moisture that is in a couple of the pieces is gone and kind of mixed around, and it doesn't sit in the same spot and then start to mold, and then it'll start molding the rest of the pieces around it. But if you have some pieces in here that have just a little bit too much water content and aren't completely dry, shaking it around is actually, the drier pieces will help suck out some of the moisture in that piece, and it'll just have a nicer little bunch of goodies here. Then you won't have the mold issues. So there's that option for you. So that's how we dehydrate kiwi. Super simple. Fruits are really easy to dehydrate, and there's no pre-treating with this, which is really fun. That's how we do it. The recipe is down below in the show notes, and while you're down there, please hit like and subscribe, because that does help. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, feedback, concerns, by all means, please reach out to me. I'm on Facebook at Stacey Can. You can at me on Instagram and TikTok at Stacey Can. My website is www.staceycancan.com. My email is info@staceycancan.com. And I'm on LinkedIn and Pinterest at Stacey Can. Thanks so much for joining me today. And until next time, happy canning.